Louisiana is a land of shadows and echoes, where moss-draped oaks whisper stories of lives long past, and rivers carry memories of towns that time quietly forgot. Today, we journey through 10 of the most intriguing towns in Louisiana, exploring their rise, decline, and the stories that linger in their silent streets.
Number 10. Glenmora, Louisiana. Nestled in the rolling piney woods of central Louisiana, Glenmora is a town whose quiet streets seem frozen in time. Founded in the early 20th century as a sawmill and agricultural hub, it flourished briefly, its economy tied to the timber boom that stretched across the region. The rhythmic hum of saws and the scent of freshly cut pine once marked the heartbeat of Glenmora, drawing families and workers to its modest homes and storefronts. Over the decades, as timber resources dwindled and small-scale agriculture became less sustainable, many residents moved on in search of more prosperous opportunities. Yet Glenmora did not vanish entirely. Today, a handful of residents remain, guardians of a townscape peppered with empty storefronts, weathered homes, and the occasional abandoned railway siding. Local cemeteries tell silent stories, with tombstones bearing the names of early settlers, some dating back more than a century. Folklore clings gently to Glenmora's history. Tales passed through generations speak of flickering lights along the old railway at night, or the sounds of laughter and children playing where no children live. While nothing sinister is documented, these whispers of the past lend the town a quiet, contemplative atmosphere, as if time itself hesitates before moving forward here. Scholars from the University of Louisiana have documented Glenmora as an example of small-town resilience, noting its unique blend of decline and continuity, where the past and present coexist in unspoken harmony. Walking through Glenmora, one encounters the soft echoes of a community that once thrived, a town that invites reflection on the impermanence of prosperity and the persistence of memory. Its abandoned structures and modest inhabited homes serve as both history lesson and living testament to the ever-changing landscape of rural Louisiana. Number 9. Rodessa, Louisiana. In the far northwest corner of Louisiana, near the border with Texas, lies Rodessa, a town whose quiet streets conceal a vivid history shaped by the timber and oil booms of the early 20th century. Originally a small settlement along the Sabine River, Rodessa's fortunes grew with the discovery of nearby oil fields in the 1920s, which brought both opportunity and population growth. For a time, the town's modest wooden homes and storefronts bustled with life, and local sawmills processed the abundant pine forests that stretched for miles around. Yet, as is often the case in towns built on natural resource extraction, prosperity proved fleeting. Oil production eventually slowed, and the timber industry waned, leaving Rodessa with fewer jobs and dwindling families. Many of the original settlers moved to larger cities in search of steady work, leaving behind an array of vacant homes and shuttered shops that hint at the town's once thriving spirit. Today, only a small community remains, largely rural, with fields and overgrown lots slowly reclaiming what the town once held. Rodessa carries its stories quietly. Locals recount tales of sawmill workers and oil drillers, of festivals that filled the streets with music and laughter long ago. Some older residents speak of ghost lights over abandoned lots, small fires or glimmers that appear on clear nights, a natural phenomenon, or perhaps a memory of the town's industrious past. The town's cemetery holds rows of markers from early 20th century settlers, many bearing surnames that still dot the sparse community today. Rodessa's history offers a contemplative reflection on the ebb and flow of economic life in rural Louisiana. It is a town both diminished and enduring, a place where quiet streets and empty buildings narrate the larger story of a region shaped by industry, nature, and resilience. Number 8. Libuse, Louisiana. Tucked quietly amid the forests and bayous of central Louisiana lies Libuse, a town whose very name recalls the Czech settlers who founded it in the late 19th century. Unlike the more industrial towns of the state, Libuse began as a community of immigrants seeking fertile land, timber, and a place to preserve their culture and traditions. Churches, modest homes, and community halls sprang up, reflecting the unique heritage of its inhabitants, and for decades, the town thrived as a small but vibrant settlement. Over time, however, Libuse's population slowly dwindled. Younger generations left for larger cities in search of education and employment, while the older residents held on, maintaining the traditions, festivals, and community life that defined the town's identity. Many of the original buildings remain, though some stand empty, weathered by years of rain and sun, their wooden facades hinting at the town's European roots and early resilience. The small cemetery on the edge of town preserves the names of settlers who brought with them the language, faith, and customs of a distant homeland. Local folklore intertwines with the history of Libuse. Residents speak fondly of spirits who linger near the old church, perhaps the echoes of ancestors watching over the town they built. Others recall sightings of mist rising from the surrounding woods on quiet mornings, moments when the natural and the ancestral seem to meet. These stories are never told with fear, but with reverence, gentle reminders that the past remains present in the textures of the town. Libuse stands today as a subtle testament to cultural endurance. Its small population, quiet streets, and surviving landmarks reflect a history of immigration, adaptation, and community cohesion. For travelers and historians alike, Libuse offers more than the appearance of decline. It provides a window into the endurance of identity, memory, and tradition in rural Louisiana. Number 7. Holdup, Louisiana. Deep in the pine-laden regions of northern Louisiana lies Holdup, a town whose name alone sparks curiosity and local legend. Unlike the larger settlements nearby, Holdup never became a bustling hub, yet it carries the quiet dignity of a place that once held promise. Established in the late 19th century as a small logging and farming community, it drew families seeking the serenity and resources of the surrounding forests. Its modest homes, wooden stores, and unpaved streets formed a close-knit enclave where neighbors knew each other by name, and life moved to the steady rhythms of the land. As timber resources were depleted and farming profits waned, Holdup's population began to shrink. Many families migrated to nearby towns, leaving behind vacant homes and overgrown plots. Today, only a handful of residents remain, and much of the town is reclaimed by nature. Fallen trees, creeping vines, in the slow decay of abandoned buildings. Cemeteries near the outskirts of Holdup preserve the names of early settlers, some etched in worn stones dating back over a century, silent markers of lives devoted to hard work and community. Local stories add another layer to Holdup's quiet history. Some residents recount seeing flickering lanterns at night along the old logging paths, a phenomenon attributed to wandering spirits or perhaps the imagination stirred by the stillness of the forest. Others speak of echoes of horse-drawn wagons and laughter during festivals that took place long before electricity or paved roads connected the town to the wider world. These tales, gentle and reflective rather than frightening, give Holdup an air of timelessness, as if the past lingers in the spaces between the trees and the foundations of long empty houses. Holdup exemplifies a pattern familiar in rural Louisiana, towns built on resource-driven promise, slowly shrinking as fortunes change, yet retaining a quiet presence that invites reflection. Its abandoned homes and modest inhabited dwellings stand as reminders of the delicate balance between human endeavor and the relentless passage of time. Number 6. Des Allemands, Louisiana. Along the winding banks of Bayou Des Allemands, midway between New Orleans and Houma, lies Des Allemands, a town whose name, the Germans, recalls the settlers who arrived here in the 18th century. Originally a community of German immigrants, this small settlement grew amidst the wetlands and cypress swamps, relying on fishing, trapping, and later small-scale farming for survival. Life here was shaped by the rhythms of the bayou, the rising and falling of the waters, the harvest of crabs and shrimp, and the careful navigation of winding channels that connected the community to the wider region. Des Allemands never became a major urban center, but its charm lay in its resilience. Over time, younger generations often moved away to cities like New Orleans or Baton Rouge, seeking broader opportunities. Still, many families stayed, preserving the town's traditions, from its distinctive cuisine to annual festivals that celebrate both its German heritage and its bayou culture. Some sections of the town, particularly old waterfront homes and shuttered fishing docks, hint at a past more active and bustling than the quiet streets of today. Folklore enriches the town's history. Stories of ghostly riverboats drifting silently through the mist or figures glimpsed along the bayou at dawn are often recounted with a mix of curiosity and respect. These tales are not to frighten, but to honor the past and acknowledge the presence of those who shaped the town's character. Local cemeteries, with modest headstones dating back 2 centuries, further underscore the long continuity of life along the bayou, linking past settlers with present residents in an unbroken thread of memory. Des Allemands is a testament to Louisiana's intricate relationship between people and place. It illustrates how culture, geography, and history intertwine, creating a community that endures quietly, shaped by water, work, and tradition, where the past is always just beneath the surface, visible to those who know where and how to look.
Number 5. Ruddock, Louisiana. Hidden between New Orleans and Baton Rouge, along what is now Interstate 55, lies the lost town of Ruddock, one of Louisiana's most quietly haunting, forgotten communities. Ruddock was founded in the late 19th century as a small railroad town, built along the Illinois Central Line. Like many settlements of its era, it existed because of movement. Trains passing through, timber being shipped out, and workers needing a place to live between the larger cities. For a time, Ruddock was a modest but active community. It had homes, a post office, small businesses, and a population made up largely of working families trying to build a life along the edge of the Manchac Swamp. The surrounding wetlands were both beautiful and unforgiving, shaping daily life with humidity, isolation, and ever-present water. But in 1915, disaster arrived. That year, a powerful hurricane struck South Louisiana, sending storm surge and flooding through the swamp. Ruddock was devastated. Buildings were destroyed, families were displaced, and the town's fragile foundation in the wetlands proved impossible to restore. Unlike other towns that faded slowly, Ruddock's end came swiftly. After the storm, most survivors relocated to nearby communities such as Ponchatoula. Over time, the town was abandoned completely, and the swamp reclaimed what remained. Today, almost nothing is left. No streets, no storefronts, only the knowledge that beneath the trees and marsh grasses, a community once stood. Local traditions still speak of the towns swallowed by the swamp, and travelers passing through the area rarely realize they are moving over ground where families once lived, worked, and gathered. Ruddock remains one of Louisiana's most powerful reminders that some towns are not lost to time alone, but to the landscape itself.
Number 4. Saratoga, Louisiana. Nestled in the heart of Point Coupee Parish, Saratoga is a town whose story is quietly woven into the tapestry of Louisiana's sugarcane and river trade history. Established in the 19th century, Saratoga grew along the banks of the False River, a former oxbow of the Mississippi, and became known for its plantation economy and small riverfront commerce.
At its height, the town hosted a general store, a post office, and homes clustered along its narrow streets, reflecting the modest prosperity of a community tied to the land and the river's ebb and flow. Saratoga's decline was gradual but inexorable. As larger towns and cities grew along the Mississippi, trade and commerce shifted away from smaller settlements like Saratoga. Many families left for opportunities elsewhere, leaving behind empty homes and overgrown gardens. Today, only a handful of residents remain, and several structures, including an old church and a few stately homes, stand as silent witnesses to a once active community. The local folklore adds a quiet mystique to Saratoga. Longtime residents tell of shadows seen moving in the old churchyard at twilight, or the sound of distant horse hooves along unpaved lanes that no longer bear traffic. These stories are passed down without fear or exaggeration, serving instead as reminders of the lives that once animated the town. The small cemetery preserves generations of families, some with markers dating to the early 1800s, offering a tangible connection to the people who shaped the area. Saratoga exemplifies the subtle beauty and melancholy of Louisiana's lesser-known towns, communities that once thrived, now diminished but not forgotten. Its quiet streets and surviving landmarks invite reflection on the passage of time, the resilience of memory, and the enduring presence of human stories in the landscape.
Number 3. St. Joseph, Louisiana. On the banks of the mighty Mississippi in Tensas Parish lies St. Joseph, a town that once thrived as a center of commerce and plantation life in northern Louisiana. Founded in the early 19th century, St. Joseph became the parish seat and a hub for cotton trade, its streets lined with modest homes, churches, and stores that serve the surrounding agricultural community. Riverboats once docked here, carrying goods and passengers along the winding Mississippi, linking this quiet town to the broader economy of the South. Over time, St. Joseph experienced the slow, steady changes common to many rural towns. Agricultural mechanization reduced the need for labor, while younger generations migrated to larger cities seeking education and employment. Flooding from the Mississippi and the shifting course of river channels further challenged the town's growth. Yet, unlike fully abandoned settlements, St. Joseph endured, maintaining a small but committed population that continues to preserve the town's heritage. The old courthouse, brick buildings, and small cemeteries offer glimpses into the layers of history etched into the town's streets. Local stories enrich St. Joseph's history with gentle intrigue. Residents speak of the old riverbank at night, where faint silhouettes of the past seem to linger, a reminder of the town's days as a bustling cotton port. Tales of historic homes, some abandoned or in disrepair, evoke memories of families who once hosted community gatherings, dances, and church socials, highlighting a rhythm of life now quieter but still deeply rooted in tradition. The town's cemeteries, dotted with headstones dating back to the early 1800s, preserve the names and legacies of generations, connecting past and present in a tangible, contemplative way. St. Joseph stands as a living testament to northern Louisiana's rural history, a place where commerce, culture, and family heritage converge. Its streets, though quieter than in their heyday, hold the echoes of a community shaped by the river, the land, and the passage of time, inviting reflection on the endurance of small-town life in America's South.
Number 2. Frenier, Louisiana. Just west of New Orleans, along the edge of Lake Pontchartrain, lies the haunting story of Frenier, one of Louisiana's most unusual lost communities. Unlike towns that faded slowly through economics or migration, Frenier's decline came suddenly through tragedy, weather, and the relentless power of the Gulf. Frenier was founded in the late 19th century as a small railroad and logging settlement. Surrounded by cypress swamps and wetlands, it became home to workers who harvested timber and supplied nearby industries.
The Illinois Central Railroad passed through the region, and Frenier grew into a modest but active community, one shaped by trains, labor, and the waterlogged landscape of South Louisiana. But life in Frenier was always precarious. The swamps that provided resources also isolated the town, and the ever-present threat of hurricanes loomed over the settlement. That threat became reality in September of 1915 when a powerful storm swept across Lake Pontchartrain. The hurricane produced devastating storm surge, and Frenier was nearly wiped off the map overnight. Accounts from the time describe homes lifted away, families displaced, and the community left shattered. Survivors relocated inland, and Frenier never truly recovered. Over the decades, the swamp reclaimed what remained. Wooden structures collapsed, roads disappeared, and the town slipped into legend. Today, Frenier exists mostly as a memory, marked by scattered ruins and nearby historic signage. Local folklore speaks of voices across the marsh at night, or strange lights flickering near the old railway. Stories told not as horror, but as quiet acknowledgments of lives lost to nature's force. Frenier stands as a reminder that in Louisiana, towns are sometimes not abandoned by choice, but taken by the landscape itself.
Number 1. Bayou Chene, Louisiana. At the very heart of Louisiana's forgotten places lies Bayou Chene, a community so unusual, so quietly vanished that even many lifelong Louisianians have never heard its name spoken aloud. Hidden deep within the Atchafalaya Basin, America's largest swamp, Bayou Chene was not simply a town that declined, it was a town that the swamp slowly reclaimed. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, Bayou Chene was a thriving Cajun and Creole settlement built entirely around water. Families lived along the bayou in raised homes, traveling by boat as naturally as others traveled by road. Fishing, trapping, moss gathering, and small farming sustained daily life, and the community developed its own traditions, music, and deep connection to the basin's wetlands. For generations, Bayou Chene endured in near isolation, a place where the outside world felt distant and time seemed to move differently. But nature, once a provider, became an unstoppable force of change. In the mid-20th century, massive alterations to the Mississippi River system, including levees, flood control projects, and the deliberate diversion of water into the Atchafalaya, began to transform the basin. Flooding became more severe and more constant. What had once been seasonal water rise turned into permanent inundation. Gradually, the land beneath Bayou Chene disappeared. Homes stood surrounded by water year-round, graveyards flooded, roads became impossible. Families who had lived there for decades were forced to leave, not because the town failed economically, but because the ground itself was being taken away. By the 1970s, Bayou Chene was essentially gone, abandoned not by choice, but by the slow drowning of a landscape reshaped by human engineering and the natural power of Louisiana's waters. Today, little remains beyond ghostly pilings, submerged foundations, and the stories carried by descendants who still speak of the community with reverence. Some locals claim that on quiet mornings, when fog drifts low over the swamp, you can almost imagine the sound of boats moving through the bayou, or hear distant music where no houses stand. Bayou Chene is Louisiana's most haunting reminder that history does not always end in fire or violence. Sometimes it ends in silence, water, and time.